Hello everyone. Welcome to the 18th edition of Film Bazaar. Our next session in Knowledge series is exploring the genre cinema, a masterclass with Chuck Russell. Before that, we will play a short video.
Where did Miles learn music?
I would now like to invite the key speaker, Mr. Chuck Russell, one of the leading Hollywood director, producer, writer. He has written, directed, and produced international box office hits that have grossed over $2 billion worldwide. Please make a huge round of applause, all of you. I would like to invite the moderator, Dr. Bhuvan Lal, author, filmmaker, and festival director, Nirvana. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been my dream to bring Hollywood to IFFI for 20 years. 20 years ago, when we started this festival, Film Bazaar was in a tent, much smaller than this, and there were hardly any people from the film business. What you have done by coming here, you have invested in yourself. You invested in the future. And what we have here tonight and this evening is a unique guy, a person who has made Hollywood films, some of the biggest ones. The total gross of the films that Chuck has done is 18,000 crores. He has created major stars. Jim Carrey, Cameron Diaz, Dwayne Johnson. They were unknown names before they did The Mask or The Scorpion King. So we are very fortunate that enduring a flight that takes almost 1 day to get to India, he and his lovely wife, Anya is the producer. Anya, why don't you get up?
Anya.
I have a friend in the audience. Her name is Marianne, and Marianne is a French actor. And just before, when we were coming out here, Marianne said something beautiful. She said, when you do the panel and the masterclass, please let the people know that to be a big man anywhere in the world, in any profession, there has to be a bigger woman behind you. So a round of applause to all the women in the hall, including my wife.
Indeed.
So here we go. Chuck, good to have you in Goa.
It's a big honor to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And to friends and filmmakers out there, thank you so much for joining us today.
So we have the pleasure of having the person who made the mask in the room. So before the film was made, the world must have been very different for you. And after the film was made, it completely changed you. Can
That's
you
true.
just take us through the process of how did Mask happen?
I can. All right, so the real story of The Mask, I started in horror films, and you saw a little bit of that here. Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 helped renew the Elm Street series and made friends for me with New Line Cinema. It was my first directing gig, and it was amazing. I went on, I did The Blob, and The Mask was supposed to be a horror film. New Line wanted another shocking horror film, and there was a comic book of The Mask that was quite terrifying. And I said, it's going to be so much like Freddy Krueger. It's going to be a horrible kill and a joke. We can do it. But there's this guy named Jim Carrey who had just come out in Living Color, and I come from theater, I come from acting, and when somebody special comes along, that's the biggest thrill for me. We're hearing about the money, and it's a business, and we have to make money, and I'm delighted when the films are successful. But I'm more delighted when I can please the audiences with someone new and give a big talent a new opportunity. So Jim had done 1 or 2 films, but The Mask blew him up internationally. But I got New Line to believe in doing something that was very hard to describe. Before The Mask, CGI had not really been applied to comedy, and CGI was brand new. I have a love for visual effects, for practical effects, and the new technologies. And in my head, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but it's the only time in my career when it was very hard to explain to others what the potential was with this particular actor. So I convinced New Line to work with me, and I knew I needed something that would be original throughout. Everything about this film had to be something original. And New Line was kind enough to let me have that opportunity.
So tell me the day you first met Jim Carrey. He walked in, and what did you think of him?
Sometimes when an actor is an inspiration for a movie,
Yeah.
in other words, if Jim said no, we were in bad shape, in my opinion. That was a one-man inspiration. So I got the script to the point where it lived and breathed for Jim Carrey. And when Jim read it, the first time I met him was after he read it, and he walked into my office and he said, if I do this, I'll be doing this character at grocery store openings when I'm 80 years old.
Right.
He said he really had never read anything. And that was, of course, that was so perfect for him. That was music to my ears because it was our goal. So once I had Jim, when you talk about a director's vision, having Jim working with me, I had a great deal of confidence, and I think I drove everybody crazy getting the movie you've seen.
And you took the movie to Cannes, and Cameron Diaz came, and all that stuff. Tell us something about that.
Listen, every filmmaker in here knows when they have something special. I guess there's nerves and all this, and I had it as well. But the timing was very unusual because I had just finished, and I was working very closely with the worst team at ILM. So it's a funny thing to say, but they were like the kids in the basement at ILM, and they did such a terrific job all the top people at ILM started coming to our dailies every day.
ILM is George Lucas
Yeah.
Visual Effects Facility.
That's George Lucas's Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
So the concept here was very interesting. This was an independent film. The Mask was not a big budget.
Right.
The whole movie was made for 18 million,
1/8.
1/8, and 7 million of that was VFX.
Yeah.
So I took the concept of an independent, low-budget film. Everything in The Mask is a normal location. The only stage set in the whole movie was his small bedroom because I had to trash it. But it was a perfectly great young independent crew with John Leonetti, a great DP of independent films at the time. And we ran with it. It was the fun of independent films is the youth and the spirit of a team. It's us against the world. We're going to steal a movie at a certain budget and put all the money on the screen, as I like to say.
And the Cannes story.
Excuse
The
me?
story of Cannes.
Oh, Cannes, sorry. So look, at Cannes was a big world reveal. I'm very into the global market. It's why I'm here. The film, I'm a big fan of films in India, the talent here. We shot here, Anya and I, before, and we love India. We had the best experiences here. But in Cannes, you're very nervous to show anything at Cannes. There's something called the Marche de Directeur. I'm saying it wrong. I know you speak French.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
But it's where directors show new films. We're not up for an award. No one knows who we are. No one globally knew who Jim Carrey was at all at the time. Cameron Diaz had never acted before in anything, and no one had seen CGI used in this way. And I have to admit, there was a little bit of inspiration from Bollywood for me to do that much singing and dancing and take it all the way into the crazy world of Tex Avery and Looney Tunes and everything I grew up with as a kid, and the 1940s music that my grandparents loved and babysat me, and I got to know Cab Calloway. But coming to an international audience for a first screening is mind-blowing and nerve-wracking. No one knew it. We had a packed theater. No one had any idea what we were about to show. I had some fans, because I'd been to Cannes with Elm Street 3, but not really, it wasn't a big deal. And they went crazy. People had I literally, I was exhausted because I just finished the film and flown there. And that evening, I cried. It was like, oh my God, thank you, Lord. It worked.
It works. And then you get a major star like Arnold Schwarzenegger in your next movie. I mean, the guy is a bodybuilder, Austrian with a bad accent. And
Arnold has a beautiful accent, perfect for Arnold.
And he turned all those sort of negative factors against him into positives and became multi-million-dollar star. So what was it like working with Arnie?
Arnie's great. Arnie's a definite alpha male. He's the real thing. In fact, I hadn't agreed to do the movie. We were just talking about it.
Right.
He said to me, I saw what you did in The Mask. You can make me look like I'm doing anything. I said, no, Arnold, you have to actually do it. But I picked up Variety literally that week, and there was a picture of Arnold saying I was directing his new film.
Okay.
So I hadn't agreed to it. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold decided I was doing it.
Okay.
And I realized, it's like checkmate. What am I going to do, say I'm not doing it? So I wanted to make sure I had similar production values, because one of the directors I really respect and know, Jim Cameron, had done True Lies already, and it was.
But does he act at all?
Excuse me?
Does he act?
Arnold acts, yeah. I mean, look, here's the difference.
It's a challenge for you?
Here's the challenge.
Yeah.
I have more fun when I have new stars and I can create a brand.
Right.
The sky's the limit. Someone like Cameron Diaz especially had so much charm. The producers did not want her. I had to fight so hard for her. But I knew the audiences would respect her, and there was chemistry between her and Jim that we saw nowhere else in the auditions. With Arnold, it's a different situation for a director. And a lot of the directors out there know this, that you're protecting a brand. It's a whole different job. It's an exciting job also.
Right.
But I know there's expectations for Arnold. And the situation with Arnold is we've already seen him in fantastic movies as Terminator and True Lies.
Yes.
How am I going to top that, or how am I going to compete with that? And how do you make someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger look like he's in danger? So there's a kind of, I call it action craft, to writing and directing for an action star. Because you've already seen him conquer everybody, blast through blazing walls of fire. How can we care about Arnold? And the answer for me in that particular movie was Vanessa Williams. Somebody who had not had that kind of position. She, again, casting chemistry worked for me. Vanessa had guts, she had style, and she was a terrific actress. And it was just a very, very interesting thing to put Arnold with somebody unlike anyone he's been with before.
You know, I still remember I saw Eraser in Stockholm, 97 October. And what hit me at that time, of course, Arnold and everything else that you did, but you had James Caan in it.
Say it again?
James Caan.
Oh, Jimmy Caan, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So he was in Godfather.
He was
And
unforgettable in Godfather.
and the world knows, you know, and you got him there. So did you see him as an actor who had kind of elevated himself after Godfather? Where was he in his career?
Look, Jimmy's a world-class actor.
Yeah.
And has a style that I've always admired because it's very naturalistic, but it's incredibly powerful.
Right.
Jimmy looks like he's not trying. He looks like he is the character. Yeah. So look, another thing for me to address with an action star like Arnold, Arnold's going to play Arnold, right?
Yeah.
So there's a range, right?
Yes.
But have I seen Arnold with great actors?
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring somebody unlike anyone Arnold's worked with before. And I told Jimmy, you know, we're going to elevate Arnold's game. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do some action. You might get beat up a little bit, but are you with me on this?
Yeah.
And because James Caan hadn't done anything like that either.
Oh.
And I said we have to respect what Arnold's unique skill is and why he has this global audience. So Jimmy did not need a lot of convincing because Jimmy's also a tough guy.
Right.
All tough guys, when they get around Arnold,
Right.
suddenly you could see just the macho testosterone ooze out of them. They all got along brilliantly.
So, just from a director's point of view, I was in south of France attending the Cannes Film Festival last year, and I had a wonderful meeting with Francis Ford Coppola, and wonderful chatting with him. And then I met Shia LaBeouf, who had acted in his latest film. So I asked him a direct question. I said, you have done work with Oliver Stone, you have worked with Steven Spielberg, of course you have worked with Michael Bay, and now you come and work with Francis Ford Coppola. And can you tell me the difference between these four guys? And Shia LaBeouf said, all the other three make me look great, and I love working with them, but Francis Ford Coppola is the last of the masters. And
I would think that's true, yeah.
And he makes me look classic. You know, acting in his film is that important. So what's your opinion about casting actors? And then we'll go to Dwayne Johnson, who is another big star that you created.
Well, what's my opinion about casting actors?
Casting actors all along your career. What's your main deal? What do you look for?
Look, I trust my instincts. I come from theater. It's not a brag. It's just you got to, as a film director. If you don't believe in yourself, I think the last panel said this brilliantly. If you don't have a vision for others to follow, directing, it's not said often enough.
Right.
You are a leader. You're a kind of leader. And you have to know your path. Me, I believe in storyboards. I want to know everything we're doing beyond the script working. Then I'm able to throw them out, right? So I'm looking for, it's like having a chemistry set when you're a kid. That's why I put someone like James Caan with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
What's going to happen when this big action actor personality meets what I consider to be a more traditionally terrific actor, something new? We're going to elevate Arnold's game, but it might surprise even me. So I have to be prepared to have a cast. My motto is just don't bore me. I don't want to be bored. I never want to bore my audience, so I try to make exciting choices. And when I can, if I can bring out a new talent, and I have my own way of testing them through an audition process, if I can bring a new exciting talent and bring their charm and charisma, the audiences, I believe, always love something refreshing.
So, yeah. Then we go, in a strange way, you make the Scorpion King. And you get a brand new actor over there too. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I mean...
Dwayne's the greatest.
Yeah. And now on Instagram, he's numero uno. So he went from almost zero to wherever he is now, and stratosphere in the future. What was that experience like?
Dwayne is the real deal. Look, I want to say something because I think people that are considered action actors
Right.
are not given enough credit. So I'm talking about everybody from Chris Hemsworth. I got to work with Tom Cruise. I got to meet Chris a couple of times. The discipline and the focus and the work hours. Yes, they have their entourage. Yes, perhaps they're overpaid, but they're actually putting themselves in great physical stress. They all, and I'll include Vijay here. Vijay wanted to do the real stunts for the Indian audience.
Right.
They are sincere. Their hearts are in the work. I am literally there to protect them in the action scenes once they're conceived, to make sure they're safe. I would walk people like Arnold and Dwayne through the safety points. If a fire or explosion goes wrong, you sit down.
Okay.
You don't finish the scene. So Dwayne has a heart of gold. He was the guy who would bring the charity kids to the set, and there'd be no photo ops.
Okay.
You know, he was doing it from the heart. And I know Dwayne is still like that. A lot of people, I love starting new actors because they're so happy to be there, and there's not an entourage yet.
Yes. Yes.
But Dwayne has continued to be a real magnanimous guy, a gracious person in Hollywood, and the courage that it takes to do these stunts is remarkable.
Now we're going to change gears completely. India.
Yes.
What's so attractive about us?
First of all, your cinema, in my mind. Now, I'm not a good student of cinema, to be honest. I love cinema, but more like most people love cinema. But I will tell you, as I've learned more about India, the quality of the cinema here has just exploded. So, and the size and scope of the movies, and in particular the correct use of CGI, in my opinion, which is not overuse, which is not killing us with too much CGI, doing more practical action to be satisfying. I think the movie RRR was one of the last ones I saw, where there are legitimate epics, and also the mythology. I'm a fan of the Ramayana, the
Ramayana.
I'm going to say them wrong, but these are. I read the Ramayana actually quite thoroughly, because it reminded me of the best mythology meets the best science fiction. So with respect to the spiritual side of this book, this is the Joseph Campbell. I was so struck about how it reminded me of the great mythologies from all over the world in a great, deep, heartfelt way. So I'm hearing people are going to make that as a movie again.
You think that's the Marvel kind of imagery we can create with that kind of stuff?
These are all stories about the human condition, about our struggle, about love and strife, and the Indian culture and the Indian films, I think, show it beautifully. So for me, it's just literally an adventure. I was invited to come to India to make Jungly. It was quite a surprise, but when I was told it was a movie to help elephants, to help stop poaching, and it was meant to be in my kind of fun action style,
Right.
I said, okay, as long as I know the elephants in particular we're using are not abused elephants. And we ended up going to a great elephant preserve in Thailand, where they were not trained elephants to make that film. Those are not CGI elephants. Those are the real thing.
Really. Would you work in India? Would you like to work in India?
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I plan to come back. One of the reasons I'm here. I'd like to do... To me, there's an edginess and beauty to India. The music and dance is amazing, but to me, it suggests some science fiction things.
Right.
That's maybe in my imagination,
Yeah.
but the great heroes, the men and women, the actors in India, I just would like to learn more and have the opportunity to work more of the talent here. Look, we call these things masterclasses.
Yes.
What's amazing about cinema is you actually can never master it. It's always changing. I
Correct.
learn so much every time I make a film. Yes, I'm responsible for what I'm doing. Yes, there's a responsibility. To me, it's first to the audiences and the cast. I want to please them. I want to elevate my cast, discover
Right.
new people, or
Right.
help the brands. And yes, we need to make money. But the medium of cinema is always changing. How we view it is always changing. The equipment is always changing.
Important point. You have used visual effects a lot in your movies, but now, 2024, there is a thing called AI. You think in the future AI will dominate storytelling?
I hope. Okay, first of all, AI is a great tool. I don't know where it will go because the curve is like wild. I can tell you where it is right now. The scripts and I tested AI almost like a writing partner. And
How did that work? Can you give us some idea?
Well, it's interesting. It was a little bit of an experiment for me. And human beings are creative. Our God is creative. That's how he made us. And that's why we go through all the crazy shit we do on this earth, is to grow our hearts, right? AI is ingenious at scouring everything written, scouring the internet, and spitting it back out. And it's quite shocking, because I felt the AI was talking to me. I would essentially say, and now it's your scene. You know, I literally was trying to co-write with an AI and see what would happen. But there's a creative death in the AI stuff I've seen so far. I love the AI artwork.
Right.
I've incorporated that. It's an extension of CGI. But the AI writing is I'm concerned it's lazy and it's spitting stuff back out. So when I pitch, I specifically went through this. I pitched a horror film concept to my AI.
Right.
And I said, give me a whole story out of this. And what I got, I go, all right, very clever, A, B, C, everything I'd seen before. So in a very clever way, it reinvented tropes, we call them, cliches or tropes. If a trope is done well, it can be great. But those were tropes of horror films we'd seen before. There was literally nothing new, and I was poking that AI to give me something new.
So AI is derivative?
I can't speak for all of AI. There's some people quitting with the Google AI or whatever because it's starting to speak to them apparently. But I will tell you that I love technology. That's why I love the CGI originally and helped pioneer it. But we need the human heart. We need the human creativity, in my opinion. Just my opinion. The real danger of AI right now is studios are starting to use it to give us script notes.
Yes.
All right, you're laughing, but this is terrifying because it's the ultimate, like it's having Lucifer as a studio executive. Literally, an AI is going to read the mask would have never been made. In a million, I couldn't explain it to my own executives before seeing CGI. So your favorite movies that are the most unique films would have never been made if an AI is reading it because an AI is, and by the way, I love some of my studio executives, just saying, there's some great ones. However, it's the worst version of that kind of authority is to say, this is not a successful movie. The AI has deemed that your second act is happening too late and you should have a different ending. And this year, musicals are not popular, so cut out the dance scenes. I mean, the worst case is if the AI is playing the sheriff on our scripts, then we're really in trouble. It's hard enough to stand up to your script to studio executives who may be in doubt over a couple of comedies failed. So for 5 years, people have been saying romantic comedies don't sell. You know, and I would say, what was the last romantic comedy that failed that should have not failed because of a trend? So look, I think it's all about passion for storytelling. And so AI is like when film went to sound, everybody freaked out in silent film. I think it's a great tool,
right?
But you can't just hand the movie to an AI. You can't do that, you know? So we'll learn to use that tool. AI might go nuclear, and I might be proven wrong in 6 months. But for now, it's spitting out, doing a great, slick job, but it's spitting out what's been done before.
So the computers and the robots that are going to come, they are not going to have a human soul. And creativity comes from the soul.
That's harsh because I like using my computer and I like my AI. I do. But let me give you an example. In The Mask, my executives said, Chuck, what is with this 1940s music? We can get you Aerosmith. Literally, Aerosmith wants to do the movie. So if you know The Mask well, this was inspired by Cab Calloway music, and I used new musicians doing new songs, but in that style. And we did a cover of a couple of the classic songs. Right. That was part of the humor. If it had been Aerosmith, I would have been one more, I don't know, this wasn't in my head, but I think I would have been one more director trying to be cool and not doing something that was true to that story.
So if you allow me, we'll open the floor to questions.
Absolutely.
And we'll do a little interactive thing. The guy there in the red shirt, please.
Just as a conclusion to
Can you
what...
kindly introduce yourself and please ask a question?
Yeah, I'm Sinu Andoju. I'm from Hyderabad, South India. And just as in line with what you've been talking about, I've come here for genre cinema and to hear more about that. Otherwise, you've discussed a lot about people, the actors in the Hollywood and all that. Otherwise, about the genre cinema or popular cinema that Chuck Russell is known for, in casting, in selecting the stories, in narratives and all. What are the factors for us in India, for indie filmmakers to learn from your way of making movies in genre cinema? Certain techniques in casting, certain techniques in selection of stories, or in the making, production and post-production processes is what I was interested to hear from you, Mr. Russell.
That's a tough question because I love Hindi filmmakers. I don't want to be falsely humble. I'm proud of my work. But when you make movies from the heart, and part of all this is you see that I love working with new actors, new talent, new musicians. For me, it's all glorious. And what I see in India is so much talent. And honestly, from a worldview, you guys are a very passionate culture, a very joyful culture. I was just saying to Bhuvan, the spirit at this festival is really more joyful and friendly than you might see in Hollywood, where there's a little more kind of a competitive political angle on things. So I really admire the culture, the talent here, and I've seen Hindi movies address all these things, and maybe specific comedy to America or India is less universal, but in terms of global universality, the human condition, you don't need language. To me, it's not a Hindi film. Is it a great film? Is it a good film? Is it touching my heart? Is it making me laugh? This is the universality. That's why we're in it. Is so interesting that The Mask worked in all these different cultures, because in a way it's very simple and silly and good-hearted, but I've seen people laugh at it equally in Japan and here and South America, in England. Not in England because they're very quiet. It's the quietest non-laughing audience there is. And I had to ask my host, are we bombing in England? And they said, no, they just don't laugh very loud here. So I can't answer the question of what I have to teach to Hindi filmmakers, because I encourage them to use their voices. And when you talk about genre, I can talk about horror, I can talk about action, I can tell you my rules of filmmaking. And in fantasy in general, H.G. Wells, this is a tip, H.G. Wells, 100 years ago, who wrote War of the Worlds and Invisible Man, wrote, when anything is possible, nothing is interesting. This is a rule that I think applies to writing and in particular to visual effects.
Can you repeat that?
When H.G. Wells wrote, when anything is possible, nothing is interesting. And let me tell you how that works for me. If I'm seeing Superman fly through 10 buildings, eventually it becomes a little bit boring after the first few superhero movies, because there's no suspense, there's no jeopardy, there's not internal logic. You start to see CGI for what it is. It's why I went back to practical effects in my new film, because the actors are scared of practical effects. It's a whole different thing. You can feel it in the gut of the performance when there are practical effects on a film set. So I think this applies also to me in what we call world building now. It's a popular term where we're conceiving of new worlds in science fiction or even horror. And the difference between a great vision like the original Star Wars.
You said world building.
What we call world building. It's a kind of a studio executive LA term, but we've always been doing it. Every science fiction guy has been doing this. The great sci-fis, even back to the silent films, Metropolis was very much world building. So it's just a new term for it. But is there internal logic in your world? Are there rules? When Jim pulls the mask off, it hurts. I wanted to make sure it wasn't easy. I believe magic costs the practitioner. So these are specific rules I work with when I'm doing magic or horror. I do films where you go in and out of dreams. How does that work? How is it going to work within this story? Are my rules consistent? Can I show jeopardy? Which is why the mask is also dangerous. If you look back at it, it's got some scary bits as well. And that balances out. I cast Peter Green, who's an extremely scary independent film bad guy at the time, so there was something to play the humor against. So to me, the dynamics of suspense, if you want to talk about genre film, the dynamics of suspense in horror and comedy are the same. We're trying to get a laugh or a scream with setups, suspense, and a payoff.
Are they same when we say it, when we try to tell a story in social drama on real life incidents?
Say it again.
Are they same when we tell a story in social drama genre or the real life incidents or something like that? Social drama.
Yes,
mostly.
but it's the artist's interpretation of what I'm saying. You just have to have your own philosophy. I wouldn't over-intellectualize this, because the mask was really, I didn't intellectualize it at the beginning. As we developed that story, going from horror to comedy, I had to, okay, what do I find funny about this? Again, I make my choices on not boring myself first. I'm terrified of boring the audience, so I try to push myself. Also, here's another tip. In writing fantasy and horror, don't write what you know how to film. I notice some people are scared, some writers are scared to write things because they think, well, maybe I don't know how to do that. I actually push myself to write things I've never seen before and have no idea how to do, because we're going to go through a process of breaking it down. You saw Schwarzenegger jumping out of an airplane here in that year in the 90s. That was tricky. And we used a real piece of a 747 on stage, and we dropped Arnold straight down. It looks like he's falling away from the camera. He was almost 50 years old, and he did it 5 times for me on what's called a descender rig. That was one piece of a half a dozen pieces. We used a real parachuting team. You'll notice a shot, I think we even used this in this piece of film, where a real parachutist is doubling Arnold, and he's fighting the chute, and we had a fake piece of parachute that was supposed to be safe, and he actually had a tough time with the velocity getting him off himself. So that man is really struggling. It was safe enough, and he was fine, and he's a skilled stuntman. But you can feel the fear in that scene because that guy's struggling. So that's all part of that same thing to me. It can't look too easy. You know, when we shot the camera latched to the side of the CGI 747 that didn't exist, it did not look real, and I finally realized if I really had a camera on the side of a real 747, it would be shaking like this. And shaky cam was widely used. I wasn't the first person, but it was rarely used then, and as soon as we put shaky cam into it, the CGI world is too easy, right? And so when anything's possible, nothing's interesting. So what if I really had some poor cameraman latched to the side of it, which Tom Cruise actually did in one of the Mission Impossibles. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, that's a lot of genre tips.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Question over there, in the middle over there.
Sir.
We'll come. Everybody will get a chance. Gentlemen over there. Please introduce yourself and ask a question.
My name is Dr. Prayak, sir. I'm a producer and a filmmaker. We're a great fan when The Mask came. I personally followed the journey of Jim Carrey because Eckhart Tolle.
I almost can't hear.
Can you speak a little louder, sir?
I'm a great fan of the movie.
Thank you.
And Jim Carrey is all-time favorite for 2 reasons. For his comic timing, and second thing, he follows Eckhart Tolle, which I follow. He wrote a book called The Power of Now, which is very much into Buddhist philosophy of being here and now. So you also mentioned about Ramayana, and you did mention about Joseph's books. How much philosophy of Indian is in your films?
He's asking how much Indian philosophy do you put in your movies? The business of here and now, meditation, all that stuff.
You know, my wife helped me learn meditation from Sri Sri's team, right? So I'm not an expert, but as an American, it's something that I understand the benefits of. So I've actually used a little bit more of that in the new film I've done, but I've yet to honor it. I've yet to show it in what I would think is honorable to the Indian culture. But I will tell you that there's a universality to Indian mythology that I probably have used in my work in a way that of the Joseph Campbell. We're all telling the same hero's journey. It's kind of true, and it's ancient beyond probably recorded history, these stories. So to that extent, I love the Indian mythology and the Indian culture, and I hope to really incorporate it, believe it or not, into science fiction, which I think it actually is. I think the Ramayana is
Charles, I have a question, Chuck. Hanuman, do you think that can be a big Hollywood movie?
I think it deserves to be. I think I was once asked to do an adaptation and researched Hanuman, and we've got a picture of Hanuman up at home. The theme of loyalty from that particular character is very touching to me, and the different cultures present the power of light in different ways. I don't know why Hanuman in particular always spoke to me. And I have dealt with the Monkey King in China in some of my scripts and the connection to Hanuman.
Right.
This mythology is magical to me. So
Bhuvan, can I ask a question? Here.
Oh, Pankaj.
Yeah.
That's Mr. Pankaj Parashar in the audience. Who doesn't know him?
Chuck, nice to hear you.
A
Inspirational.
little louder, sir.
Nice to hear you. Inspirational. When are we doing an Indo-American horror film? I have the funds.
let's go. Let's go. That believe me, I've been playing around with ideas for that. Please, let's discuss it.
Okay, yeah.
You know?
Bhuvan will meditate.
Any excuse for us to come back here and film, we'd love it.
Okay.
And let's
Anything for
look.
you.
I want to mix world cast members. That's another reason I'm into all this.
Yeah.
Is without explanation. I was raised in Chicago, which is actually a real melting pot, or has been when I was a kid. We didn't have to write in a script why someone was from India or someone was. It just was the neighborhood. But I think adventures where we show cultures working together against evil would be in a horror film is a wonderful kind of story to tell. So that strikes me as a great way to look. And the mythology here is just incredible. And there's some scary stuff coming out of the Indian imagination as well.
Great, let's meet.
We need
Good,
to do
good.
a masterclass with Mr. Pankaj Parashar also at some stage.
Sure.
People from Film Bazaar, please note that. There's a question, that lady over there, yes. The lady over there.
Watch out! I think this young lady's a martial artist, if I remember correctly. Do not anger her.
Oh my God. Hi, Chuck. It's
Hi.
been wonderful listening to you. I'm Astha Sharan. I'm an actor and I'm from all over India right now. So my question was mainly focused on writing and storytelling. So as of now that we can see this cinema has reached kind of like a stagnancy point, as in when you said when anything is possible, nothing is interesting, right? So it's very hard to please the audience, number one. And second, very hard to please the studios. Third, very hard to please the people that you're casting in your films. So I want to understand, when as a writer you're writing, do you keep these criteria in your mind? And if not, how do you cut them off?
We have a saying: you have to get all the cops out of your head. All right, you really do. Where is your love for that story? Why are you choosing that story? And if you want a story to be authentic, and look, I've done gigs in my career, and probably will again. You know, I mean, I was honored to be asked to do an episode of Fringe from J.J. Abrams, and that was a great experience for me. But it wasn't. What I'm getting at is you need passion for the story, and you can't. The problem with pleasing the studio is they're going to change every 6 months, because a new movie's going to come out and fail, and they'll say, okay, we're not doing westerns anymore. Or a new movie's going to come out and be a success, and they'll say, we need a dinosaur in this movie. Okay, so that's not a productive way to think, although I got to keep saying I've gotten great guidance from studio executives. Pleasing the audience, that's more about, I think, pleasing yourself as a creator. You have to, yes, you should keep the audience in mind, but to be authentic, why do you want to tell this story? I consider myself an audience member. I love cinema. And I consume cinema, so I try to keep up with what I'm sick of. At the moment, I think superheroes may be refreshed again by Deadpool, because honestly, they're looking right in the camera like we did in The Mask. It's wild and crazy and imaginative. So you fuse something new, an absurdity, to the superhero genre that refreshes it. So yes, you have to think about, are you being original? You don't want to copy a trend. Don't be an AI yourself. But your love and your belief in yourself, your love for the story, your belief in yourself, is the only way you'll do something original, which is where The Matrix came from in its day, which is where The Mask came from at the time I did The Mask. Those are the films that are most remembered, the films where I was least safe and had to convince the studio against their will to do something original.
So when you write these characters, which are very out of the ordinary, do you already have a certain specific person in your mind that you build the universe around, or do you go with it?
It's interesting because sometimes as a writer, I'll have somebody I knew at high school, and I'll have a Jim Carrey. In other words, it'll be an impossible, phantasmagorical mixture, and there'll be some characters I'm learning. And when we're doing our best as writers, we are the AI. My characters will speak up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say things I did not plan. And maybe that makes me schizophrenic, but it's what you're doing as an actress. You may find your character is led in a scene in interacting with another actor, hopefully led by a good director, into something you didn't plan to do in that scene. So it's...
I'd like to endorse what the festival director Shekhar Kapoor, who is from my school in Delhi, said yesterday. We should tell our stories. The world should be brought together, united instead of this polarizing world, and we should become one, because the language of cinema, wherever it's spoken on planet Earth, makes us all one.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you, Chuck. It was great having you.
Thank you so much.